Bookstara Reads, and it's time for a Sunday Sum Up, which is one of the videos I really enjoy doing. And I can tell because I haven't felt like doing anything else lately, but I can always make time for Sunday Sum Up. And so I wanted to get you a little caught up on me, what's going on, and then of course the books I've been reading. I have been sick all this past week, and I wasn't sure what I was sick with. I tested negative for COVID, and I thought maybe I have a viral infection or something like that. So I finally did go to the doctor, and he said that he's pretty sure it's allergies, which I was like, this isn't manifesting the way allergies normally does. So, because I haven't been as congested as I do get usually with allergies, but I've been running a fever, I've had really bad headache all week, it's just a lot of wooziness and stuff. And he said that was pretty common for allergies when you're having, I don't know. But today I actually feel like I've been punched in the face, which makes me think it's a sinus infection, which makes sense for the fever. It's just that I haven't been that congested, so it just seems strange that I could have a sinus infection and not like have a runny nose and be completely plugged up. But I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully I'm gonna start getting better because I missed trivia this week and that makes me really upset. Of course I missed school and work, but that didn't make me quite as upset. So as far as my reading goes, I actually got quite a bit done. I know content has not been happening, and that's just one area where I haven't really felt like doing much filming or editing. So I will be doing 3 book reviews this week, which is really exciting considering I had none last week. And as far as what I'm currently reading, it hasn't changed. I haven't made any more progress on Split Infinity or Ship of Destiny since I last talked to you, but this is my next book that I have to work on alongside with Ship of Destiny. I had to finish City of Ashes because we had our live show discussion on Friday, and today's Saturday, so I'm doing a buddy read discussion today with Alita in the Books about The Worst Best Man. So I finished this one this morning, actually. I finished it this morning. So I'll give you reviews on these 2 as well as the audiobook that I had been talking about. And then we'll see if anything else has been going on. I almost forgot to mention, I did start another book. I started 2 new books, and one of them is the audiobook I'm listening to, which I don't know if I'm going to get that into. It's the next Alan Eskens book. It's called The Guise of Another, and this is the next in the Max Rupert series, which, like, the first book that I read, The Life We Bury, was like the first book in the Joe Talbert and the Max Rupert series. And I really loved that first book enough that I wanted to continue on. This one, The Guise of Another, did not get as good of reviews, and I'm definitely not enjoying the narration as much as I enjoyed the narration of The Life We Bury. So I have yet to decide if I want to continue on with this one, and I think I do want to continue on with Alan Eskens' writings, but I might instead go to the next in the Joe Talbert series, or kind of look and see what the next high-rated one was. And I don't know, I haven't decided yet, but something's either I'm going to continue listening to this audiobook or I'm going to pick another audiobook, because so far I need this narrator to grow on me. And one of the things I really loved from The Life We Bury is how much I love the characters. I'm not loving them as much, at least so far in this one. So we'll see. And the other one that I have started is The Tragical History of Dr. Faustus by Christopher Marlowe. So I picked up this play because it is mentioned in The Discovery of Witches. And so far what I've gotten from it, and granted this is not an easy play to understand, is that it is about this Dr. Faustus, and he is really wanting to expand himself. He's really good at what he does, but he wants to become the best, and he wants to be known for something. And so he's really thinking about getting into more of the metaphysical and the philosophical, and he is reading a book, basically an alchemical book, and he wants to figure out the secret of immortality. And that's what I'm getting so far. So if you have read The Tragical History of Dr. Faustus and I'm completely wrong, I've only read like 3 or 4 pages in, like the first monologue by Dr. Faustus, and that's what I'm getting from that monologue. There's a lot of Latin in his dialogue. There's a lot of stuff that I just don't quite understand. And so I may need to later on go and find like commentary on what he's saying through these sections, because I'm not catching everything. But I picked this up because of Discovery of Witches, and it makes sense. I don't want to give anything away about Discovery of Witches, but there's a huge alchemical component that is part of Discovery of Witches, and so it makes sense that this is an important text for the book, Discovery of Witches. So I am excited about getting through that one. It's actually one of my Magical Aurelium classes. It's spells and incantations, basically short stories and essays. It's a play, but it's like 65 pages long. So I'm considering it for that class. And taking my spells and incantations class. So that's good. I've started on that. And as far as anything else, I think that's all I'm working on at the moment. I really do want to get this finished. I did promise John I would get it done. And then of course I really want to get this one done because there's so much happening and I haven't had a chance to pick it up. But yeah, this week I really had to get these two finished. So I did. And that feels good. Okay, so I've got a few other things during this video that I want to share with you, including what is that over there? And my surprise selection that I got from the library, which is exciting. And then of course my 3 reviews. So let's go get caught up with those. Okay, so I am sick and I'm not sure with what. There's a head cold or cold going around in my family. COVID is also going around a lot right now where I've been. So I took a first COVID test and it said so far that it's negative. I'm gonna take another one tomorrow morning. I'm hoping it's just a cold, but I've been running a low-grade fever for like the last 24 hours, a headache. Now I'm getting congested today. And so that's fun. But it is the 10th of April and I have finished my second book, and that is The Life We Bury by Eskens. This is a mystery that I had picked up because I heard the audiobook was so good, and the audiobook was so good. I'm going to give this a 4.5 stars because it was surprisingly exactly what I needed right now, and I enjoyed it a lot. Even though there was a lot of the story that wasn't surprising, there were some things that were, which was good because I was expecting it to be very predictable, but I didn't mind that, honestly, which is surprising because usually when it comes to mysteries, if you know too much, you're kind of like, it's not as enjoyable. But this one, I think I was just really enjoying the writing. I really liked the characters, and I think that's what made a big difference for me, is that I enjoyed the characters so much and the character building. I thought he did a really good job of that. And just the tone of this mystery, it was kind of sad. It was difficult. There were a lot of characters in this that were struggling with different things, and I enjoyed that. I think the thing is I was in the mood for this right now, and I had been reading other mysteries. I don't read a lot of mysteries, so that's another point to make, but I had been reading mysteries that I just wasn't a big fan of. You know, I read a few cozy mysteries over Christmas time that I was like, And this wasn't a cozy mystery. This was sort of just like a slow mystery. I've read a few others that I just wasn't either crazy about the writing style or there was something that wasn't working for me, but this one did. It really did. And so I enjoyed it even more because of that. But the audiobook was phenomenal. I absolutely loved the narrator. I thought he did an amazing job. I'll put his name up here. And he really got me into the story, really got me into the characters. So this is about a guy named Joe Talbert, and he is in college. He is dealing with a mother who is an extreme alcoholic, and he has a brother who is autistic. He is the oldest brother, so there is a responsibility to his younger brother, especially considering his mother's situation. And he's just trying to get on with his life because it's been a difficult one, and he has faced a lot of codependency by his mother and a lot of things that have made it so he didn't think he would be able to live his own life. He's trying to work his way through school, and he has been able to save up some money for college that is, and he has to take this class that he wasn't expecting to take, but it was the only thing that was available, and that's a biography class. And in this biography class, he has to write the story of someone who is older and has more experience in life. So he ends up going to a nursing home, and the people there pair him with this guy named Carl Iverson, who happens to be a murderer. He's kind of out on parole because he's dying of pancreatic cancer. He has been convicted of raping and murdering a 14-year-old girl, like 20 or 30 years prior. And Joe is there to get this guy's story. And so it was very interesting how this mystery unfolded. I like how much we got to know each of the characters through this story. And I thought that was, I think, a real strength of it was the character development. I wouldn't call this a thriller, although there are definitely moments that become thriller-esque. There are moments where you're like, oh shoot, and there's a lot riding on what's happening in that moment. But it's not a fast-paced
mystery, which is fine for me. I was enjoying it for what it was. I will say there are trigger warnings because you do find out quite a bit of detail about the rape scenes and things like that. So there are trigger warnings for rape of a minor and a lot of different things, actually. There's quite a few. So look those up if you're nervous about this book, because it is not an easy read as far as some of the details that are put into it. So yeah, I think I will definitely continue to read more of Alan Eskens' works. I was thinking I would love to listen to him on audiobook because it's just easier for me to get other books that I wasn't planning on reading on my TBR that way. I had hoped that this particular narrator was narrating the rest of them, but that's not the case. So we'll see if I like them as much with a different narrator, but I'll give them a go. We'll see how it goes. I do recommend it if you like slower paced mysteries that are really character based. I think that you'll enjoy it. I don't know that this is for everybody, but of the mysteries that I've read recently, this is the one I've enjoyed the most. Okay, so now we've got my bookshelf up. Haven't put anything on it yet. Yes, still have my Christmas stuff out. This is the other bookshelf that I had here. Not very well organized, but this is what I'm going to be filling, which is nice because it gives me a lot more space. And hopefully I can get some good organization with my books. So I ended up moving the shelf over here because I needed to attach it to the wall. And when I tried to attach it over there, sorry, don't look at this. I tried to make a hole right there because the wall's uneven and there's metal underneath there. So I couldn't actually make a hole. So now I have an ugly hole in the wall. Here's the ugly hole, and underneath that is metal. Isn't that interesting? So I moved over here instead, and I'm starting to fill it. Down there I've got my hardcover and large nonfictions, and I've got my softcover nonfictions. Up there are secret video books or 5-star predictions. And then I'll be working to reorganize this stuff and my other books in my other bookshelf and get them on here. Okay, so it's time for a review of City of Ashes, the second book in the Mortal Instrument series by Cassandra Clare. Now, this one, I can't give you too much because it's the second in a series, but I can tell you that my feelings of this were a lot different than my feelings about the first book for a couple of reasons. So I'm going to give this one 3.5 stars. I still had a lot of fun with this. And granted, this series was written at a time when YA was way more dramatic, very tropey, and, it wasn't written for me. It wasn't written for my age range. But I'm really trying to stop looking at this from an adult's perspective because that is definitely going to hinder my ability to enjoy it because it is not written for adults. One of the things I started loving about this in the very beginning of the book was one of my complaints from the first book was that the pacing was off. There was just too much happening in too short a span of time. She would move from one topic to the next. There were so many great ideas that she was having, fun ideas, creative ideas, but she would go quickly from one thing to the next. And you never got a chance to really learn more about those specific moments or scenes or what have you. And I felt like that was improved in this book. The pacing was much better in this. Unfortunately, the ideas were not as exciting as the first book. This felt like a middle book. It's only the second book, and yet it felt like a middle book too much. And the ideas were not as exciting. I felt like we were just kind of holding over until we got to the next book. And so that's where, okay, pacing's good, but now you're spending too much time on things that I'm not interested in. So it was improvement in one part and kind of a slide backwards in another. One of the things we were talking about in our live show discussion of City of Ashes, and if you want to go see that, we do talk about a lot of things, including spoilers about this in detail, so I will link that down below. Go check it out. One of the things we did talk about was how Cassandra Clare describes characters, and you feel like you understand the character, but you don't know the character. You're not getting a personal feeling for the character, and that lack of character development is really what makes it difficult to like the characters. And of course, if you don't like the characters in a book, it's going to be really hard to enjoy the book overall. Now, there are plenty of characters that I didn't like, and I liked books despite not liking those. But those are usually the characters you're not supposed to like, or I liked that I didn't like them. Whereas in this one, you're supposed to be rooting for the main characters, and it's really hard to, because they're just not very likable. Even one of the characters, Simon, who I rooted for quite a bit in the first book, I wasn't feeling him this time. I just wasn't enjoying him this time. I still love Magnus. He's still one of my favorite characters. I still love Luke. He's one of my favorite characters. But the main characters, Clary and Jace, they're not very likable. We don't get to feel much empathy towards them. And so that makes it harder to rate these higher for me. I'm sure there are plenty of people who like these characters. It's just, I don't really care for them that much. And this is the same problem I had with Twilight, whereas I liked some of the elements that were used in it. Of course, I liked the love interests, but I really could not stand the main character, and that was a big hindrance for me. Granted, I know that Twilight is very problematic in a lot of ways and has a lot of issues, but I did enjoy elements to that story. I had a really hard time liking it overall, though, because I could not stand the main character. And that's knowing that these are supposed to be annoying teenagers. Like, I get that. I totally get that. But I have read other books with annoying teenagers in them, and I still have liked them a lot. And, like, I think of Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. I know that a lot of people have a problem with John Green's main characters, but I really liked the main character. I loved that book. And even though she was struggling through so much, and she was incredibly dramatic, and she was going through a lot of anxiety and different things that she was dealing with, her OCD, I still really liked the character. I was invested in the character, and I have not been invested in the main characters of this one. There are a lot of other things. Go watch that video. Go watch our live discussion. We did get a little chaotic and we went off topic quite a bit, but we did talk about some of the issues we have. But this is still fun enough that I'm going to continue on. Obviously, I'm hosting a read-along about Mortal Instruments, but one of my co-organizers has jumped ship. She's like, I can't do it anymore. And that's understandable. I completely understand that, especially with this series, because it really wasn't written for us. And this was really good, I think, at the time that it came out. But we have had so much experience with YA fantasy since then, and YA fantasy has evolved so much over the last 10 years that it's understandable that this did not stand the test of time, if that makes sense. This doesn't fulfill either of the 2 readathons that I'm currently actively working on, but it does work for the read-along. So if you are still wanting to join Mortal Instruments read-along, there's still time. These read so quickly that you could easily get through the first 2 before our next book, which is City of Glass. That'll be in June. And if you've already read this series, let me know in the comment section down below. I'd be curious to hear what your thoughts are, because I can see that this is not going to work for everybody. And I think that we've had a lot of interesting conversations surrounding it and people who have been enjoying it overall. I am really interested to see how many people have actually reread this and thought on a reread years later, what have you, that it didn't quite meet the same expectations they had based on how they enjoyed it to begin with. I'm curious. I got my surprise selection in, and it is, as you can tell, the final girl support group by Grady Hendrix, which I still haven't read anything by Grady Hendrix, and this one might actually just happen sooner rather than later, because honestly, I'm feeling like a horror at the moment. I don't know why, but especially with the last mystery that I read, I was looking for something a little darker and something a little more, I don't know. I'm not like in a mood where I just feel like I want sadness and darkness in my life, but for some reason I'm kind of gravitating towards those books at the moment. I'm definitely not reading anything like that, but there's a part of me that wants to read those. And so very likely this will not happen. I have way too many books that need to happen. The surprise selection came from Liz again, wonderful Liz, who gives me such great varied suggestions, which I like. And I've mentioned this before, but my library does this thing where they give you recommendations, and you can specify what kind of books you're looking for so they can narrow it down. But I said, just give me recommendations. And I don't think I've read any of the ones that they've given me. I get the books, and then I have so many books on my actual TBR that I never actually get to them, but there is potential to get to these. And Mom always reads them because she can. I get this bookmark with it every single time, and it says, chosen for you because it's suspenseful, darkly comedic, and downright creepy. I hope you have a good time with this one. And if you like this, you might also like My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones and Such a Pretty Smile by Christy DeMeester. So I love that they also give other suggestions that might work if you enjoyed this one. Honestly, I've had such a big variety that this has just been fun in general, seeing what they're going to send me. And hopefully one of these days I'm able to read the surprise selection that they send me. So this is going to go on my TBR cart. I'm going to try and make time for this if I can. And because, yeah, I would love to read a Grady Hendrix. So the book that I finished this morning was The Worst Best Man by Mia Sosa. And this is not a very highly rated romance. In fact, this was on my Trash My TBR books with the lowest ratings video, which I have not done the results video of yet. And this was going to be one of the winners. And I haven't put that results video out. So obviously I'm not going to count this, and I will pick another book that was a winner for the next round, because I am going to continue doing that, but I'm going to probably wait until June. So the thing about this, though, is that Alita from Elite in the Books asked if she could buddy read this with me, and I was like, yeah, of course. But then if I haven't put out that Trash My TBR video, so it did get a lot of people saying they would keep it, people that were interested in it, and I picked it because of that reason. Because for one, I felt like reading a romance, and two, you know, a lot of people were really gung-ho about saving it. And I'm going to give it 3 stars. I should say that my rating, the way I rate things, 3 stars are good. They're not necessarily the best books I've ever read, but, you know, they're still good books. 2 stars are books that I have completed. I may have liked them or didn't like them that much, but I was able to get through them all the way. 1-star books are usually the books that I have DNF'd. So I just want to preface that with a 3-star is not a horrible rating from me. I think that this was a very average romance novel. I enjoyed a lot of elements to it. I had fun with this. I thought the concepts were cute. I really liked the Brazilian American perspective. Our main character, Lena, comes from a large Brazilian family. They're very close-knit. I loved the family connections in this. I thought that was very interesting. On her side, on the main male character's side, obviously there was a lot of issues in that family. And so I wasn't as crazy about that. But I did enjoy the way Mia Sosa incorporated a lot of her own culture into the story. And that was probably my favorite part of the book. That was one of the things I enjoyed the most. I love books where there's a lot of family involvement. I find that very interesting. I like seeing a family that stays together and is very supportive. Those are things that I enjoy in a book. As far as the rest of it being a romance, I was not invested in the 2 main characters. Lena was okay. I never really believed Max, the main character. He just didn't seem very genuine to me. There was a lot of times when it was either like indifferent, or all of a sudden he's so in love with her he can't, like, it's the end of the world if he doesn't spend time with her. And that flip-flop, that really easy flip-flop, just felt insincere to me. And so I wasn't as invested in him. It made it very hard for me to like him as a main male character. It was a little strange. And then one of the other issues I had was the dialogue. It seemed kind of cheesy. Like, I don't know, do people really talk like this? And maybe they do. And maybe when you're in that romantic situation, it feels different, doesn't feel quite as cheesy. It didn't feel real. It didn't feel like these are conversations I could expect people to actually have. And so that was one thing that I struggled with. I struggled with how cheesy the dialogue was and how unrealistic the dialogue seemed for an everyday conversation. And that is something that will take me out of a book. I've said this before in other reviews. If the dialogue does not seem believable to me, I have a hard time rating those books high, because for some reason that bothers me. It really does. And so, yeah, I wasn't as invested in the character or the dialogue. There were fun moments of this. There were silly and funny things that happened in this book. Mia Sosa tried to use a lot of wit in this, which was fun. I did enjoy that. It felt a little too cheesy, or maybe just the humor didn't quite hit me right at times, but there were a lot of moments that I enjoyed this. And then there were other times where I put it down and I didn't really feel like picking it up again. So that makes me say, like, this is a very middle of the road kind of romance, and a 3-star feels about right. So for my Squash That series, I picked this one as a standalone book. So I have finished this one as my standalone Squash That series book. I don't think this was a book for any of my Aurelium Spring Equinox books. This just was for the one readathon. But I am excited I read this. It was nice to read something light and fluffy, especially this week when I was sick. And I'm looking forward to talking to Alita about this. So that's pretty much it. That's all that's happened this week. I'm hoping that next week I'm feeling a lot better and that I want to create content for you, because I think that's one of the things that I'm feeling not very complete about. But I'm really doing okay aside from that. My reading is going really well right now, so that feels good. Let me know in the comment section down below what was the best book you read this week, and let me know what was the worst book you read this week, because I'm curious again. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you can see what happens next week. What's going to happen next week when I'm hopefully feeling better. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you later. Bye.